An ego is a double-edged sword. On one side of the blade, it is a powerful weapon that will allow you to go towards your goals with a great delusion. Sometimes being too realistic will limit your mind and make sure that you stay where you are. Now, on the other end of the sword, your ego is killing your growth. Let me give you a great example. In high school, when I was younger, I don't know if you can relate to this, but I had a massive ego, a disgustingly big ego. I used to think, for one, I was the most handsome person in the school. And for two, I used to think that I knew everything. In every single argument I was in, or any argument I would make, I used to think I was always right. I had nothing to learn because I knew everything. One of the beauties of life is no matter where we end up, how far we get, we always have something to learn. And thinking you know everything is not allowing you to grow fully. A lot of things happened in my life, as in everyone else's life, which allowed me to grow and find out who I truly am. But if your ego is the size of a balloon, one day it's gonna pop. The greatest advice I've ever received in my life from my dad was to always listen. Sometimes you really gotta stop speaking and listen. In our everyday life, a conversation is always a transaction. We just want someone to listen to us. We hate listening to the other person. Today, listen to one of your family members talking. Or if you're outside and you overhear two people talking to each other, try to see if you can spot the person that wants to speak. It is normally both of the people. They both want to speak at the same time. Have you ever been speaking to someone, alright? You're looking at them and you're thinking, are you even listening to what I'm saying? You're standing here like a melon and I could tell you're not listening to what I'm saying. You're just waiting for your turn to speak. And people do that all the time. Now, am I saying people that wait for their turn to speak have massive egos? No, I'm saying if you do have an ego that is apparent to you, you're going to be more inclined to speak than to listen. Now, when you listen, you learn more. You actually understand. Have you ever engaged in a conversation so well and you're listening, you can recite everything that person is telling you and you're not just waiting your turn to speak. Great thing about listening is understanding. You get to understand people, how they function, how they react to certain things. You get to learn, and you might even learn about yourself. When you're listening to something, how are you reacting internally? You might not show those emotions, but you definitely feel something. You might even gain a deeper knowledge within yourself. I think there is a time and a place for an ego. Sometimes it is right to think you are the best at what you're doing. That's why you're giving yourself a push. Sometimes saying, this is too easy, actually helps. But on the other hand, sometimes thinking that you're not the best at what you do and there's someone ahead of you might give you the extra drive. I most certainly have an ego, but I have learned to humble myself and become more grounded. The best way to learn is to be open-minded. And the best way to destroy a high ego within yourself is growth. Growing from those mistakes, growing from those lessons, growing from all those hard times, growing from every single thing you've been through will allow your ego to dissolve, to be crushed. I've had my ego shattered more than once. We all have had our ego shattered more than once. And it's up to you whether you want to rebuild it and make it bigger than it was, or if you want to take a step back and view it from the outside. Growth kills ego. I was bullied in high school. Back then, I used to think it was the end of the world. Okay, nothing really crazy happened. I made some rap song and I got bullied for it. Now when I look back at it, sometimes I feel like maybe it was deserved. It was a part of the character development. I needed that. I needed my ego crushed for me to learn about myself and for me to learn that I'm not the best. There are people out there better than me. There are people out there working harder than me. And I'm optimistic enough to know that if I put in the work now, one day I'm gonna catch up. One day I might even overlap them. One of the healthiest things I ever did was learn to have alone time. I feel like learning to be comfortable in your own presence is a time where you get to grow and truly be grounded. When you're by yourself, whether it's by choice, your mindset changes so much and you start to have less of an ego. It is so important to learn the difference between confident and overconfidence. Now, of course, there's a very fine line between being overconfident and confident, and that's a video for another time. People with inflated egos just can't cool themselves up on their own bullshit. It's always got to be somebody else to tell them, but they're always going to justify it because they're all high and mighty. An amazing thing is self-reflection, the ability to see and say sometimes, you know what, I am the problem. Sometimes you have to stop and appreciate that we are all imperfect. No one is perfect. Everyone strives for perfection. They strive to make every single thing they do perfect. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. You should strive for greatness in all aspects, but you should also appreciate being imperfect. If you are a perfect person, what do you have to live for? You're perfect. You have nothing to learn, and there's nothing extra you need to do because you're perfect. I honestly think that sounds mundane in my opinion. I don't want to be perfect. I want to be great, sure, but do I want to be this perfect guy that has nothing else to do? Will I even have purpose? I love being able to work towards something. You always have to appreciate the journey and not be too excited to get to that destination. You can't just solely focus on a destination. You gotta appreciate the journey getting there before it's over. If you don't have a chance to humble yourself and truly see that, then that's when you need to question yourself. Is my ego too big or is my ego just right? I'm the best versus I will be the best. I will be the best. The hunger is so rich. It's so pure. You got that driving force behind you. That's the difference between egos. One is settled, one is unsettled. One ego is satisfied, the other is unsatisfied. I understand sometimes dropping that ego or dropping that thought of yourself, that belief, is a very hard thing to do. And sometimes it's just gonna have to get forced out of you. Something terrible is gonna have to happen for you to realize, for you to drop a level. There's always someone better than you. They say that for a reason. It's hard to self-reflect, but once you get in the habit of it, once you really can sit down and view yourself from an external point of view, then it fixes everything internal. Do you think I ever look back and be like, oh, the good old days when I had that massive ego, when my pride was like Vegeta's? No. I would never ever go back to that because I would be backtracking. I already made all this growth and I have so much growing to do. You already made all this growth. You have so much growing to do. I just got back home from having sourdough pizza with my brother. Although I feel like it's left my brain a bit groggy, I can't really get my ideas out there. I hope I'm not yapping to you. I hope you know what I'm trying to say. I hope you get the context. Don't ever be against learning. Drop your ego. Let somebody teach you something every now and then. It's okay. You're not a perfect being. You're never ever gonna be perfect in your life. Appreciate being imperfect. Appreciate listening. Stop speaking. Slow down. Step back. And most importantly, self-reflect. Learn to have self-isolation. You ain't always gotta be around your friends. You ain't always gotta be around your family. You ain't always gotta be around anybody. Sometimes you need to be around yourself and you need to just take time. Ego kills growth. But when you read that backwards, growth kills ego. My God. If you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate if any of you would like to support me on Patreon for exclusive content. The link is in the description. My God.